Sometimes, the best intentions create the biggest messes. This is a story about how a simple idea, meant to solve a local problem, would ripple out to affect an entire continent. It all began quietly, along the slow-moving rivers and ponds of the American South, where people have long depended on the water for their livelihoods. In 1972, southern catfish farmers faced a problem: algae-choked ponds. The booming catfish industry was struggling to keep its waters clean. Algae blooms, fueled by warm weather and nutrient-rich runoff, threatened the health of the fish and the profits of the farmers. Traditional methods of cleaning the ponds were expensive, time-consuming, and often ineffective. Their solution? Import Asian carp from China to clean up the water. These fish had a reputation for being natural vacuum cleaners, able to consume vast amounts of algae and organic matter. The idea seemed innovative, even visionary, a living tool that could restore balance to the ponds without chemicals or costly labor. The carp were efficient, voracious eaters, perfect for the job. They could devour their own body weight in algae each day, quickly clearing murky waters and improving conditions for the prized catfish. Farmers marveled at how quickly the ponds transformed, the water turning from green and cloudy to clear and healthy. They kept ponds tidy, required little care, and seemed like a natural fix. The carp thrived in the warm southern climate, needing little intervention from farmers. For a while it looked like a win-win: healthier catfish, cleaner ponds, and lower costs. No one worried about what would happen if they escaped. The focus was on immediate results, not long-term risks. Fences and barriers were seen as enough to keep the carp contained, and few imagined the fish could pose a threat beyond the farm. Farmers saw them as tools, not threats. The carp were just another piece of equipment, a biological solution to a practical problem. There was little concern about their behavior outside the controlled environment of the ponds. Carp grow fast, eat a lot, and reproduce rapidly, ideal traits for a contained farm. In just a few seasons their numbers could multiply dramatically, ensuring a steady workforce of algae eaters. Their adaptability and resilience were seen as assets, not liabilities. But nature doesn't respect fences. Heavy rains and floods are common in the South, and it only took a few storms for the carp to find their way into nearby rivers and streams. Once free, they encountered a vast, interconnected network of waterways. The very qualities that made carp useful would soon make them dangerous. Their speed, strength, and insatiable appetites allowed them to outcompete native species, disrupting delicate ecosystems wherever they went. Farmers underestimated their ability to survive and spread. The carp adapted quickly to new environments, moving upstream and downstream, colonizing lakes, rivers, and wetlands far beyond the original farms. What started as a simple fix was about to become an ecological nightmare. The carp's numbers exploded, overwhelming native fish populations and threatening the livelihoods of fishermen and communities that depended on healthy rivers. And the carp's big break was just around the corner. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic invasions in American ecological history. A journey that would change the fate of rivers, wildlife, and people for generations to come. For years the carp stayed put, doing their job. Then, in the early 1990s, historic floods hit the Midwest. Floodwaters overwhelmed catfish ponds, breaking barriers and releasing carp into the Mississippi River system. Suddenly, the carp had access to endless food and space. They multiplied rapidly, devouring plankton and outcompeting native fish. A single female carp can lay over 1 million eggs a year. With no natural predators, their numbers exploded. Carp spread up and down the Mississippi and into major tributaries. Within a few years they dominated thousands of miles of river. What began as a farm solution became a full-scale invasion. The Great Escape was complete. The real trouble was just beginning. The Asian carp invasion devastated native ecosystems. Carp consume plankton, the base of the aquatic food chain, starving out native fish. In some rivers they made up over 70% of the total fish biomass. Native sport fish populations plummeted, hurting local economies and traditions. Silver carp, notorious for leaping out of the water, turned boating into a dangerous sport. Injuries from flying carp became common. The biggest fear carp reaching the Great Lakes, threatening a $7 billion fishing industry. They advanced steadily toward Lake Michigan, just miles from the final barriers. If they established there, the ecological and economic fallout would be catastrophic. The stakes had never been higher. Urgent action was needed. Authorities scrambled to stop the carp from reaching the Great Lakes. They built expensive electric barriers in the Chicago waterways hoping to block the fish. Netting campaigns tried to remove carp downstream of the barriers, but the carp population was overwhelming. Removal efforts barely made a dent. The barriers slowed the advance but didn't stop it. Communities grew frustrated as costs soared and results lagged. Carp were seen as worthless pests, bony, unpalatable, and unsellable. The fight felt hopeless. But a surprising solution was about to emerge, not from science, but from the marketplace. Sometimes the answer comes from where you least expect it. The turning point came when entrepreneurs saw opportunity in the carp crisis. While Americans dismissed carp as trash, overseas markets, especially in China, valued them as food. Suddenly, the pest had a price tag. Commercial fishing for carp became profitable, aligning economic incentives with ecological goals. Struggling river towns found new life as processing plants opened and jobs returned. The industry grew rapidly, harvesting millions of pounds of carp each year. The ecological nightmare was turning into an economic engine. The war on carp had a new strategy: catch and sell them. The pest became a product. A river full of trouble was now a river full of opportunity. Carp fishing, once a small-scale activity, rapidly evolved into a full-fledged industrial operation as the demand for carp surged. What started as a local effort to control an invasive species soon became a massive enterprise, with fleets of boats and teams of workers dedicated to harvesting these fish from the river. Crews deployed enormous nets, stretching them across wide sections of the river to capture as many carp as possible. These operations could haul in tons of fish in a single day, transforming the riverbanks into bustling hubs of activity. The catch was transported to processing plants in Illinois and Kentucky, where modern facilities, certified by the USDA, ensured that every fish was handled with care and efficiency. These plants were equipped with advanced machinery and skilled workers, turning raw carp into high-quality products. To preserve freshness, workers flash froze the fish almost immediately after processing. The frozen carp were then carefully packed and prepared for shipment, ready to travel thousands of miles to reach customers around the globe. Nothing went to waste. Every part of the carp was separated and utilized: meat for fillets, heads and bones for soups and broths, skins for specialty products. This approach maximized value and minimized waste, creating a range of products for different markets. The largest market for American carp was China, where the fish is a staple in many dishes. But demand also came from Vietnam, Nigeria, and even parts of Europe, where carp is prized for its taste and nutritional value. Each shipping container, packed with processed carp, represented thousands of dollars in revenue. The high profit margins attracted more businesses to the industry, fueling further growth and innovation. What was once considered a worthless, even problematic fish, had now become a sought-after global commodity. The transformation was nothing short of remarkable. The industry's efficiency and innovation turned a river pest into a valuable export, creating jobs and new economic opportunities in the process. The Mississippi's invader was now a worldwide resource shipped from the heart of America to dinner tables across continents. The transformation was complete and the story of carp had entered a new chapter. Yet, despite its global success, there remained one market left to conquer: the United States itself. Would Americans embrace the fish that had taken the world by storm? Despite the impressive success of carp exports overseas, the fish continued to face an uphill battle for acceptance in the United States. For decades, carp had been saddled with a negative reputation, seen as a nuisance species and a poor choice for the dinner table. Many Americans viewed carp as inedible, associating it with muddy flavors, excessive bones, and polluted waters. The image of carp as a trash fish was deeply ingrained, making it difficult for people to imagine it as a delicious, healthy meal. Recognizing the need for a fresh start, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources spearheaded a bold rebranding campaign. They decided to give Asian carp a new identity, renaming it Kopi, in hopes of changing public perception and sparking curiosity. The new name, Kopi, was chosen to evoke a sense of freshness and possibility, distancing the fish from its troubled past. Modern packaging and creative branding aimed to make Kopi stand out on store shelves and restaurant menus. To introduce Kopi to the public, food trucks, tastings, and chef-driven events were organized across the Midwest. These events invited people to try Kopi in new and exciting dishes, from tacos to ceviche, prepared by talented local chefs. Diners who tasted copy for the first time were often surprised by its mild, clean flavor and versatility in the kitchen. Many found it hard to believe this was the same fish they'd always heard negative things about. As word spread, restaurants and grocery stores began to take notice, gradually adding copy products to their offerings. Chefs experimented with new recipes, and copy started to appear on menus as a sustainable seafood option. The campaign also highlighted copy's impressive health benefits, such as being high in omega-3s and low in mercury. Advocates emphasized that eating copy could help restore balance to local rivers by reducing the population of this invasive species. By choosing copy, consumers could play a direct role in supporting river restoration and protecting native ecosystems. Eating copy became more than just a culinary choice. It was a way to make a positive environmental impact. Changing public perceptions was a gradual process, requiring patience and persistence. Over time, however, more people began to embrace copy, and the movement gained real momentum. The domestic market for copy was finally opening up, with customers seeking it out at supermarkets and restaurants alike. What once seemed impossible was slowly becoming reality. Thanks to creative marketing, community engagement, and a focus on sustainability, the carp's image was getting a much-needed makeover, and a new chapter was beginning for copy in America. The real victory? The rivers themselves are recovering. Intensive carp fishing has reduced their share of river biomass from 70% to 45%. Native fish populations are rebounding, and water quality is improving. Aquatic plants and habitats are returning, supporting young native fish. Profits from carp exports fund restoration projects, reintroducing native species and rebuilding habitats. The industry is creating jobs and revitalizing river communities. Anglers and boaters are returning to once abandoned waters. The carp are literally paying for the damage they caused. Commercial fishing isn't just removing a problem, it's funding the solution. The rivers and their communities are coming back to life. The carp revolution is restoring both nature and livelihoods. The Asian carp story is a lesson in turning crisis into opportunity. What began as an ecological disaster became a $100 million industry. Every net full of carp supports families and restores rivers. Commerce and conservation are working hand in hand. This model offers hope for managing invasive species worldwide. With creativity and determination, a problem became a resource. The work isn't over, but the rivers are healing. By turning a pest into profit, communities have given themselves and their waterways a second chance. And that's a job worth doing.